Climbing in your windows to snatch your people up.
Had your kids, had your wife, and had your husband.
There you go.
All right. Welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that always plays on heroic. I'm Steve Watts.
And I'm Brian Carr. Steve, I want to let you know, and all of our listeners know, that today's Chattycast, brought to you by Audible.com, get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's CHATTYCAST.
Thank you, Brian. So every week on the Chattycast, we pick a big topic, we post about it on the Shack News Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments fueling the discussion, hence Chattycast. So this week, our guest is Shack News' own Briefcase Man, which at least sounds like the name of an office-based superhero. Awesome time.
Hello.
Shack News CEO and Gadabout, etc.
I kind of call myself the inexplicable CEO of Shack News.
Yeah, it's like how Marvel superheroes always have like an adjective, like
The inexplicable Asif Khan.
The inexplicable.
The inexplicable CEO of Shack News.
Yeah. So as I said, this week we are talking about our big topic, which is heroes. What makes a good hero? What makes heroic characters interesting? It's one of those big, broad topics that we've sort of been playing around with doing for a long time. We're eventually going to do villains as well. But first, before we get to all of that, we're going to talk about what we have been playing, and Asif, as our guest, how about you kick us off? What have you been occupying your time with lately?
Man, I know you guys talk about it every week, but I love Super Mario Maker. It's amazing. I'm working on my third level.
Wow.
I know.
I know people like pump those out at an alarming rate, so you must be really putting some work into yours.
My first one, Brian, you played it, right? It was, it
was good.
It was a bunch of coins. I made the word shack out of coins. I made a shack out of coins, but
yeah,
it was a fun level with a bunch of trampolines. The second level, I tried to make it a little bit more hard. And then this third one, I'm definitely making, it's kind of that old school where if you go up, there's a shortcut that makes it easier, but if you go down, it's, insanely hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a castle level, so I'm excited about that. It's my first castle level.
I have a concept level for that I've never made with, a Wario skin, and I nicknamed it Wario's Greed, where, the lower level, you get a lot more coins, but it's way harder. And the upper level, it's pretty much just straight to the goal line.
I also finally plugged in my Xbox One, which I bought a month ago, but I've been traveling, and I put in Rare Replay, and it's surprisingly crappy, given how excited I was for those games.
Oh no, I liked Rare Replay. Well,
I'm just saying
issue?
They put zero effort in making the games look better. They're just here you go, kids.
Oh yeah.
There's no attempt to polish it whatsoever. That's my only complaint with it. But I love Blast Corps. I've been playing Blast Corps again. I was playing Rocket League with some friends last night. We were talking about it. Why doesn't someone just rip off the Blast Corps model and make that game again?
Yeah, it was a tech demo that they built a game around, but it works so well.
It's so much fun. I would love to play a new game where I just smash stuff, but alas, they just gave us the same game, which is still good. I'm still playing it. I still really like it. But yeah, that Rocket League. I played a little bit of Destiny, but I'm.
Are you trying to get into it now that the Shack staff is kind of all about it? There's so many people on our staff that are like, oh man, now I love Destiny.
Steve, I don't know if you remember, I was on the show a year ago, and I was talking about Destiny being in the Game of the Year discussion, and everyone's like, you're an idiot, no way, blah, 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 blah. Rabble.
I didn't remember that, yeah.
And, because you guys talked me out of it. I wanted to put Destiny as one of my games of the year. You guys were like, no, it's crap.
I mean, you can put it in yours.
Fast forward a year later, and you also talked me out of WWE Supercard, which is probably a good thing. But
we were all struck by the madness. I mean, it passes.
WWE Supercard.
Yeah, but my point is that Destiny didn't suck. It just had issues, and they fixed it. It's not like Tony Hawk 5. That sucks. That's never going to be good. It's hot garbage.
See, the problems with Destiny and the problems with Tony Hawk are very different. Tony Hawk is a game that is. We're going to talk about this later in Newsy Bits, but it is a game that is just like fucking broken. Like, that's a little different than like it doesn't really feel like there's enough content here, and the narrative doesn't make any sense, which was more or less the Destiny problem.
I have never cared about the story mode in shooters. Like I'm one of those people. It's like, okay, great, there's a story, neat. Let me kill some shit, and I think that's like
Well, the shooting in Destiny feels excellent. I've always maintained that, like, it just the feeling of playing it is pretty much unmatched, I think.
They gave us a Star Wars speeder. You can dance in the game. I mean, come on, what else do you want? It's like it's like an infinite universe of Halo. I guess the fire teams could be bigger, but it's just funny how last year everyone on the staff was like, "That game sucks, 7 out of 10. I'm not playing it," and then everyone's grinding now. Every single one of our staff members is like,
well, that's what a year of updates will do. I mean, they addressed the content problem, which was really the biggest problem, and the sort of loot grind. In its current state last year, I would say it's difficult to make a game of the year argument for, but it does show that like in our modern era of updating games, you can really turn something around, which you kind of had to, because with that kind of investment in a game, you can't just like let it die on the vine. You have to like make something out of it.
I think a couple games like that were Diablo 3 and Skyrim, where they started out like hot messes and then were able to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Skyrim when I first played it. I didn't run into a lot of the bugs that a lot of reviewers did, but that's just one of those weird things that comes up in reviewing games when like you put a review out there and you're like, I loved it, and then there's a bunch of reviews like, I hit so many bugs, and I'm like, I didn't, so I can only speak to my experience.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say those are the three things I'm playing. I still play Rocket League like every day.
Of course.
I still play Mario Maker like every day. And now that I have an Xbox One, I'm trying to get into that. I have a 2K16 for NBA, and I need to start playing that. It's just not enough hours.
Did you end up picking up Gears of War Ultimate Edition?
I have not yet. I have Gears of War. I plugged in my Xbox 360, so I have Gears of War 3 down there. And
I mean, when I asked like what would convince you to get an Xbox One, you were like Gears of War.
Yeah, but I want new Gears of War, not this thing called Ultimate Edition that really isn't Ultimate. It's just Gears 1. I thought it was going to be like everything. I thought it was going to be like all the multiplayer, all the horde mode.
It did set a weird precedent with like Ultimate Editions usually meaning something different, and this one being like, yeah, it's just the first one, and I guess you can download the older ones with backwards compatibility.
Yeah, and that's not that ultimate to me. So and honestly, my main concern, and this is going to sound like kind of nerdy or whatever, but I spent years talking about grinding. I spent years grinding in Horde mode in Gears 3 to unlock the infinite ammo Mutator. And I'm not just going to give up on that and like be like, oh yeah, let's start that over again. No, that took like years to get, and it's fun to just go back. I still have friends on my 360, so we go back and we play that. That's honestly that's not the game that I got it for. I got it for Rare Replay and Forza. Forza 6 is amazing. But yeah, I'll get it because I know Josh has it or a couple of you guys have it. I'll play some Gears. But no, I played it at E3 and I was pretty disappointed in it. It was just Gears 1. I'm like, oh.
Prettier.
Yeah.
And with revised cutscenes, because that's what you play Gears for.
Yeah. But yeah, I have an Xbox One now.
So, Brian,
yes, sir.
What are you playing? I sort of know the answer to this.
It's Metal Gear. It's going to be Metal Gear for the foreseeable future. I did
because
go
that
out.
Game is roughly 5,000 hours long.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, people are talking about like, well, this game's unfinished. It's not the full extent of what Kojima wanted to do. I'm like, how much more could he have done? Like, it's we're already
an insane amount of content.
Yeah, it is. Like if you look at this and say this is not a good value proposition, there's something wrong with you. Okay, but that also means it basically consumes whatever free time I have to play games, and lately there hasn't been much. So I hit a sort of milestone over the weekend. And I don't want to like spoil anything, so I'm going to try to dance around this as much as possible. There are distinct halves to the game, okay? Mm-hmm. And I finished the first half.
You're tiptoeing so much.
But that doesn't. I mean, I don't think that gives very much away.
I know.
and so I finished that, but then there's a whole lot of other stuff. The thing is, the back half is not quite as well. How do I want to put this? It's not quite as well designed, or not quite as like thoroughly like curated as the first. So it's kind of almost feels like they had this rough idea of what they wanted to do, but then they're like, well, Konami's knocking on the door, firing Kojima. We have to just get something out. So they just kind of like found a way to string the story stuff together. And I kind of almost wish that I could get through that stuff faster. Though luckily the missions themselves
they gave you a companion that does missions for you.
Exactly.
Like how much faster do you want it to go?
I've got Quiet. She's maxed out. She's got the silence tranquilizer gun. She does most of the work, but still. But I'm still having fun with it. I still enjoy it, but I'm also kind of getting to the point where I'm ready to be done with it, and it's not indicative of the quality. It's just like I was a sucker. I went out and bought Destiny. I got the Taken King bundle because osmosis, I guess. I don't know. And I want to play some of that too. So I'm hoping that I can put Metal Gear to bed sometime in the next few weeks, but then Metal Gear Online is going to start, so who knows?
Yep. I'd really love to finish Metal Gear because I've heard so many people chattering about the ending, and it hasn't been spoiled for me, but I'd like to know what all the chatter is about. But it's just so long. It's so long, and I'm currently stuck on a mission because I don't have like the piece of equipment that I need to actually finish it. Which I feel like this is just a minor complaint because I really love the game. But like if there's a story mission that you need a certain thing to do. They should tell you because I went on that mission.
Like when you go to the mission. I
went on that mission. I went on it just fine, and I kept trying to Fulton the truck, and it just was not going. And I was like, oh, I saw that it had like a 0% chance, and I'm like, oh, I don't have a Fulton upgrade to do this. And like critical path me towards whatever upgrade I need. I don't know. It was slightly frustrating, but not as frustrating as the game that I'm playing that I actually want to talk about.
Okay, well, I don't want to take any more of your time. The only other thing I'll say is that the other game-related thing I've been doing is I've been listening to the Halo Hunt the Truth series on the podcast are doing.
Which is not a game.
It's not a game, but it's game-related. But it's a game of emotion.
Okay.
And it does some interesting things. I can't talk about like because it's weird because it's not a game, so there's like I can't say I played it, but like it as someone who's interested in Halo, who wants to play the new one. Like this really does a good job of kind of exploring some of the less explored parts and kind of some of the underlying tragedy and sadness of Halo, but in a way that's
our topic too. It's all about Master Chief, right?
So it is. It's basically it's Serial, the podcast, but it's about Master Chief instead of the murder of a teenager.
Does it have like a million cuts?
Yes, it does. Like,
that's funny.
They basically lifted the sort of public radio Serial model to tell this story. And it's really effective. And Keegan-Michael Key from Key and Peele is the reporter, and he's just so good in that role. It's cool.
You said podcast. Is it released in podcast form?
It is released in podcast form. They're on the start of the second season now, I guess.
Well, then I'm definitely going to download those.
And the episodes are pretty short. So anyway, just fun stuff. It's all marketing, but it's good marketing. So I just wanted to say that it is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can tie it into our topic later.
Yeah, so I don't want to take any more of your time because I know you need to get this off your chest. So.
Okay. See, I'm going to do something unusual here because usually I kind of wait till after I review a game because usually we kind of review games before release and things like that. And so if I can talk about it on the show, I'm like, well, it's embargoed, but I can say this. And then if it's not embargoed anymore, then I can just say what my review said. But this time they sort of sent us the review copy a little late, so... The review isn't quite written yet, but let me tell you about a game called Animal Crossing. The embargo is up, so I can say whatever I want.
Happy Home Designer.
Happy Home Designer. Yeah, not Animal Crossing like New Leaf or whatever.
Yeah.
Because to be clear, like there's a lot of Animal Crossing games, and most of them you are a townsperson and you're doing a variety of activities. You're going fishing and you're, going around and talking to people and hunting bugs and visiting the museum, and it's all sorts of like little cute things you can do. Now imagine they make a game that takes one of those things and strips out some of the complexity and then just makes you do it over and over again. That is Happy Home Designer. It is just the interior decorating portion of Animal Crossing. They have more options in that they have more, decorations and stuff. Obviously, you're going to need to if you're making a whole game about it. So So they have more decorations and stuff. There's more variety of things that you can decorate with, but there's less complexity because they took out there was sort of like a feng shui mechanic in New Leaf, I think, where it was like, oh, for maximum happiness, make sure you have, the blue couch facing left or whatever, and you'd have like these sort of probably procedurally generated like arbitrary little factors that you had to make sure you met to maximize your score or whatever. It was sort of an underlying system to the whole thing. This strips out the feng shui thing, and the only mechanic is make sure you have the stuff that the client wants in there. And this sort of manifests itself in two ways. One way is you have a client who wants a house, and they say, I want this kind of house. And I've experimented with plotting the land in different places. It doesn't seem to matter. And they'll say, I want a black and white house. Okay? You go into their house. They have like 2 or 3 boxes already packed up. You tap on them, which unpacks them. And then you can just go back and talk to them and say, like, I'm done. And they'll be like, hey, this looks great. Because all the stuff they packed was black and white. All the stuff they packed like fits the theme that they're going for. So if you have like anything that fits the theme, which is the stuff they packed, it automatically counts. So that's the one way. It's like tap on things and go talk to them. And of course you can decorate a lot more. You can go into the accessories and be like, let me pick out all of the black and white things and make this look nice. But after some experimentation, I realized like that does not matter. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. They're pleased with you no matter what. So I was like, well, that's pointless. That just makes it feel stupid and like meaningless. Like my interaction with this game is meaningless. The other kind of decoration you can do is basically you get a promotion after like a week to be like the city planner, and they're like, okay, build us a hospital and a school and things like that. In those ones, there's a checklist of things you have to include. But you can just tap on anything in that checklist, and it shows you all the options. So it's like, we need a chair. So you tap on chair, it shows you all the chairs that'll count, and then you tap on one of those chairs, it pops up, and you're like, I'm done. It's like, it's holding your hand to an outrageous extent, and there's no way to do better or worse at the task. It's just, you either completed the extremely simple task or you didn't. So it just feels like nothing. It feels like a nothing game. It feels like
it's less.
No, go ahead, Brian.
It feels like it's less happy home designer and more Animal Crossing unskilled moving company.
Yeah, like, I nicknamed it like Animal Crossing helping strangers unpack their stuff simulator.
Yeah.
Which, it's a joke, but also it's incredibly accurate because it's just been incredibly boring, and that's very frustrating for me, because we have this policy where we want to see credits before we give something a score, and I have no idea when that's going to be. Like I can't really tell if I'm making progress because there's an infinite number of animals as far as I can tell.
2018 Steve finishes this game.
Yeah. That like they're always going to come up to me and ask like, hey, can you make me a procedurally generated house of this type? And I'll be like, like, yeah, I guess I can. As far as I can tell, the critical path is the city planner stuff, where you're building up the city and picking out buildings for shops or cafes or whatever. So I've sort of just been like mainlining that. Like every time that option comes up, I make sure I do that instead of doing a random house. But again, it doesn't matter. There's no score. There's no like doing better or worse. I literally like yesterday just popped a bunch of desks up and chairs because they were like, oh, we need a school revision. So all right, fine. So I popped up a bunch of desks and chairs, just enough to hit like the number that I had to hit. It was blocking the doorway. Like you couldn't even get in the building. But then I went and talked to my assistant, and she was like, this looks great. I was like, what are you talking about? This looks horrible. Like. You need to have some gauge of whether you've done a good or bad job, and it doesn't. It's boring as hell. I don't know. It's not good.
I mean, I guess the one thing you haven't mentioned is the amiibo support. Do you have the cards?
I got one card with it. I think it like came in the package or something.
Is it almost as meaningless as the game?
Yes. I mean. There's 2 ways you can do it. The one way I haven't tried yet, so I'll have to do that. But the first way you do it, they just mention offhand, like, oh, you can tap an amiibo to the thing and get a visitor here. So I just built a house, and then I, tapped the amiibo card to the screen, and this little animal called Pascal, because that's who the card was, popped up and was like just looking around the house, like, oh, this looks like a nice place, like that was it. That was like he just came in and like visited. The other way is in your office, in your like weird realtor office place. There's a phone, and this character has this way too long explanation of what the phone does, but he's like, it's an amiibo phone, and you can call amiibos by tapping them on the thing. And they're like, what if you don't have any amiibos? Too fucking bad. You can't call anybody because it's an amiibo phone.
Okay.
It's like a gated community.
He says almost that exact thing, except without the word fucking. He's like, what if you don't have amiibos? Too bad. It's an amiibo phone. That's what it does. So, so I haven't tried that yet. I think that might be like, if I want that amiibo to be a client, I can design a house for him or something. Maybe that's how it works. I'm not sure yet, but I assume that him being a client would be just as meaningless as anything else, where he just comes along and he's like, I want a clown house. Put clown shit in my house. And I'm like, okay, fine, here you go. And,
Wait,
and then I'm done.
Should we reach out to Nintendo to find out if there is an end game for this, or are you just
I feel like if I keep doing the city planner stuff, I'll hit the end game. But it's like the obnoxious thing about mainlining it, like I kind of am, because I'm already sick of it. I haven't even played for that long, but I'm already kind of tired. Like they just have a lot of redundant dialogue. Like every morning when I come in to work, the little secretary lady, Lottie, is like, try your best today, like every single day. It's like, I'm like, shut up, just let me get through this faster. I don't need to see you do your little happy dance when I finish your house. I don't need to see the little cutscene of like animals looking around the place that I've just like designed really poorly. Like I don't need any of that. Let me skip all that. Just let me.
Oh man, I'm adopting the try your best today for Shack News Slack chat. That sounds like the perfect way to.
It's like a living kitten poster inside my office every single day. They do something kind of interesting with the play coins, and I'll say like if you really love designing Animal Crossing things.
No.
I mean like maybe I feel like there's somebody that this game appeals to.
Internet high five.
And like. But the thing is, even if you really like designing the houses, I feel like this would just get really old, like really fast, because there's too much of it, and it's all the same. But yeah, I don't know. There's more options, so that's kind of cool, I guess. Like at first, I was putting a lot of effort into like, oh, I'll have I'm designing like a cafe. I'll put the cash register over here, and I'll have a couple tables over here, and then like it slowly dawns on you that like none of that matters at all, and so. It just kind of sucks the fun out of it when you realize, like, oh, I could do fucking anything. I could just fill this place with, like, little skulls or whatever, and it wouldn't matter. They do something kind of interesting with play coins. They every day when you come into work, there's a home designing manual you can read a page of for a certain number of play coins, and that unlocks, like, extra, house elements. But, yeah, happy home designer.
Yeah, I haven't played New Leaf in like a good 2 years, but I imagine my village or my house or whatever looks like, Walter White's house.
Just crawling with spiders.
All the flowers are dead. There's like tags on the inside. Kids are
spray painted mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back to the GameCube version, which I think was the first one that America got. It was in 64 in Japan, and then GameCube in over here. I went back to the GameCube version after a long time. I don't know how long, but. You have villagers like, hey, I haven't seen you in 500 days because they're still counting the days.
Yeah, totally.
And you're like, oh, well, now I feel like shit. This little raccoon was like missing me for 500 days.
See, I had that problem with New Leaf, and then I just decided I felt nothing for them anymore. I think I might have deleted it. Like, if you guys didn't want to like chip in to make the city a better place, then too bad. I don't care if you moved away.
I cared about the flowers.
The flowers are important, yes.
I was sad. I was sad when I went back. And
I shook those fruit trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Tom Nook is your boss, so you're like working for Satan, also. That's the other thing.
He's the worst.
He's the worst. He comes in to visit once in a while. Most of the time, he's not even there. But like, at one point, he left and like made sort of a under his breath allusion to, "I'm just gonna go golf." And so there's sort of like an underlying thing where it's like you're just working your ass off at this boring ass job so that he can play golf. This is a work simulator. This is actually what work is.
Well, maybe it's for people who suck at Mario Maker. It's like,
Maybe.
okay, okay, you may suck at Mario Maker, but we're gonna make this game where it praises you for the crappiest design ever. Because I was playing Mario Maker with my nephews, and they just they don't know what they're doing. It's just blocks everywhere. I'm like, you're not gonna be able to get out of this. And they're like, whatever, blocks. So I guess.
Yeah. And something that I didn't mention is, you've got the boxes that unpack. Like if they say we want a clown room, you got the boxes that unpack like clown stuff. I think actually it was called a kitty room, but it was like it was weird. Anyway, but besides that, when you click on like the individual parts of the house, like, okay, show me all the chairs, show me all the tables, it just highlights like these are the new ones that are clown themed or whatever. So you can actually like make a themed room that everything you would actually need in a room fits the theme. But like, why would you? Like, why would you take that time to do that? Because it doesn't matter. They're not going to care. I don't know. It's a very dispiriting game where it just makes you feel like the amount of effort you put into work does not matter.
I feel like we've made some real progress today, Mr. Watts. I'm glad that you're opening up about your feelings. And hopefully we can
that was therapeutic.
About your mother.
Yeah. I was writing my review, like notes for my review, not the whole thing, because kind of how reviews come together. I write if a paragraph or a turn of phrase occurs to me, I'll just jot it down. And sometimes that stuff gets cut completely. But I was looking at the notes I was taking. I was like, all of this sounds like really angry. I'll probably have to tone this down. Like when I'm in the shit, I feel like it's probably more negative than it's going to end up being. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to our big topic.
40 minutes later, let's move on.
I needed that. Thank you. As the fall season ramps up, we're going to be spending more and more time with some of our favorite heroes. This was actually Brian's naming. Master Chief, Lara Croft, some rando who wandered out of a wasteland vault. So we got to thinking, what makes these characters interesting? What makes a good hero? So some of the questions that I posed towards the chatty: what makes a compelling hero? Do you prefer a personal avatar or a fully formed character? What makes a hero compelling and iconic? Is it enough to like these characters, or do they need to be aspirational fantasies? And who are some of your favorite heroes and why? I feel like that last one's a good kind of kicking off point. Who are your favorite heroes? Mm-hmm. Asif, I'll pick on you first. Who are some of your favorite heroes?
Well, I just think Nintendo's amazing at making hero characters. I love Link. I love Mario. I kind of like the underdog. I like guys like the world's against him and he's trying to save the world. I don't know. I like that kind of mechanic. A little newer games, I definitely like Marcus Phoenix from Gears. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, Michael Wang named his son after him. That's how much our group of friends respect him. But I like those characters that are thrust into that position where it's like save the world, save the girl, that kind of thing. The traditional. But yeah, I would go with the old school Link, Mario, and then
my go-to classic example is Link. It's the one I even used for the page thread. I think Link is an interesting example, and not to hijack and go off in a completely different direction, but a lot of heroes these days are like, there's a prophecy and blah blah blah, Mm-hmm. Like Link, for some reason that never bothered me. The prophecy thing kind of is an annoying trope in a lot of games. But Link has that prophecy element, but it also feels like he's just kind of like a kid that like stumbled into all this. So they somehow managed to like pull off that balancing act in a way that a lot of games don't.
And I would be wrong not to mention my favorite game, Duke Nukem. He's a little less. He's kind of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Steve's busy coughing up his water over there. Not from Forever, dude. From 3D. I'm just saying. It's not like.
Yeah. I assumed you weren't talking about Forever.
No, I've never. If I ever mention Duke, I'm not talking about Forever. That game never happened, in my opinion. But I don't know. I kind of like that brash, vocal kind of. Do the whole show in a bad South Side Chicago accent.
I'm gonna insert the "Shake It Baby" sound effect right here.
Yeah, but yeah, you know what I mean. So I guess I like a broad range of heroes, but my early opinions on heroes definitely comes from Nintendo and Capcom and the old school guys. I like, you know, when you look at like Link's battles, he's fighting some enormous dude, or you know, Mario versus Bowser. I like the underdog. I think that's something that definitely makes video game heroes more compelling to me.
And he's just some kid, so you know. Brian, want to give us some initial thoughts on heroes?
I'm kind of in a similar boat. Like obviously Mario's kind of the guy, but if we go beyond that, I think like I'm also a fan of characters who are either just sort of they're not really meant to be there, or that they just sort of like become this like Mega Man. I love the idea of Mega Man, like this robot that was created to clean houses.
That's all like in the backstory, but it makes the character more interesting.
Yeah, he's like, you know, he's not like a big war machine or anything. He's just like this robot that wanted to help, and I think that's a really kind of admirable thing. I think that's part of what makes that character endure, and it sort of maintains consistency throughout all the different iterations of Mega Man. Like Mega Man X is very idealistic, very, you know, very much wants to be there for people, that sort of thing. I don't really care. Like, I'm not a big fan of like cool heroes, right? Like your Dantes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the first one that came to mind.
Yeah, like where it's just like this person's cool and hip and with it.
He's got hair in his eyes, and he's like, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this table of amiibos right now, and I'm like, well, we forgot to mention Lil Mac.
Yeah.
He's a great hero.
Yeah.
Little Mac's absolutely that guy. Like
Little Mac is Rocky. Like he's the Rocky persona turned into a cartoon, basically.
I'm also a fan. Like I'm also like, because I'm going back and thinking my own childhood. Like when it came to like Street Fighter and stuff, I was never like a Ryu kid. I always thought Chun-Li was the best, and I always loved the fact that again she's kind of like on her own there. She's sort of she's the piece that doesn't fit, but she's still on the same playing field. She still wins. She has her own story, and she's always been
she's got a better story. I mean, like,
she has a great. Yeah.
The thing is, like, her story is like she has a personal stake in all this. Ryu's story is like, I need to fight to find.
I'm just gonna go wander around fighting. No, shut up.
Yeah, like
you're lame. But like, I actually just got done writing a proposal for a book that's in the works, talking about like the importance of Chun-Li in terms of the sort of overall development of the female game character. So whether that comes out or not, I think that's something I might actually kind of dig into, because there's something about that character's always been really interesting to me. And this is going to sound weird because it doesn't fit at all with this, but I think in some ways the notion of Master Chief, part of what I love about Halo, the Halo series, is that Master Chief is kind of like that. Like, yeah, he's like the great hero, superhuman war machine, but, you know, he's also a kid who was kind of taken from, you know, had his childhood taken away. He's been isolated and alone from everybody by virtue of being the great hero. And like there's like the fact that he still does all this stuff.
Basically the last one, right? Like by the time Halo 1 starts.
As far as we know, I don't know like
where they're at. Spartan 3s.
Yeah, I don't know where they're at in terms of Halo 5 and all that. But like he's the last of his kind. He's kind of on his own. Nobody literally can understand what he goes through except for this voice in his head, like this computer program. And I always thought that was like sort of
this really... Which is why Halo, as you said many times, is a romance story.
It's a love story, and like that's a weird way of looking at it, but that's part of what makes that story compelling. And like, you know, the fact that this guy's already sacrificed everything, is still willing to keep doing it for no real personal gain. Like he doesn't get the girl or anything at the end. Like that to me, like there's an element of nobility that I also find like characters like Solid Snake and Big Boss, like they're tools of, you know, these powerful forces, but they still believe in something that they fight for, and often what makes them tragic is that belief gets corrupted by forces beyond their control. I find that a really interesting character choice that you just don't get from like a Nathan Drake or something like that.
I think something interesting that's sort of come up, and this is another tangent that I think might deserve its own big topic at some point. But the changing face of heroes, the ones that we've named as examples, so much of what makes them compelling to us that we've been talking about is like their backstory, which you'd find in the manual, not in the game. like Mega Man, his whole backstory.
So as they go on, the backstory becomes
being the last of the Spartan 3s. Like they didn't expand on that much. I think, you know, Snake and Big Boss and things like that, there's probably a lot more because there's a lot of story in those games.
There's like 70 hours of cutscenes. So
sort of the classic video game hero was just like a character on the screen. The game didn't explain them that well.
Mhm.
You know, like if you didn't read the Metroid, manuals, you wouldn't know that Samus is like an orphan that her parents were killed by Ridley and she's infused with blood of this ancient bird race. Like all of that is not in the game at all.
Well, the characters back then were just tools. They were representations of the player in the game world. Like you need to give the player an interactive element to the game. This is their focal point. I'm going to control this person, and then maybe we can help with some way to justify it. But we really want to make this game and build it around these sorts of things. That's where it came from. I mean, you don't really start seeing characters being the focus until much later, like in the 90s. And even then, it was still not that common.
Yeah. So Radula, we can go off on this thread. He said he separated these into like two camps, which I thought was interesting. He said voiceless. Some of his favorite examples are the Doom Marine, Gordon Freeman, and the Vault Dweller. These tend to be yourself playing the game. The environments are what you're exploring. Gordon Freeman, I think, is probably a little bit more of an example of a character, but his character is completely shaped by other people talking to him. Or the G-Man saying his famous, the wrong person in the right place can make all the difference. Or the right person in the wrong place. Anyway, so voiced, he said Nathan Drake. When you play as Nathan Drake, you just move him around, but it's his personality. The same with Lara. You explore environments, but the character you're playing explains if it's good or bad. So that's sort of a distinction between like authored. Are we playing as basically just avatars of ourselves, or do we prefer seeing a strongly defined character that has their own arc?
In
which
game
is
studies,
that probably splits among eras, even.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. In game studies, there's like a distinction that's I'm trying to remember the author who came up with this, but I think it's Crawford or something like that. But the idea is that you have avatars, which are characters that you sort of shape on a visual representational level, but also through your actions. And then you have agents, which are characters that are already clearly defined, and you're playing through their story, like your Batmans and such like that. But I think the voice and voiceless thing is interesting because I would argue that Commander Shepard would fall into a voiceless category, right? Commander Shepard does not have an authorial voice until you give them one. And
I mean, he's always... Well, Shepard is a weird example because he kind of does.
What do you mean he?
Well, yeah, okay. You know what I mean. Like
I don't know. I don't
she.
Uh-oh. Are you PC, bro?
No, I'm just saying I've never played as a male Shepard in Mass Effect, so my experience, I have no idea.
I started as default Shepard and just kind of left that throughout. But the point is, like, Shepard has a person. Well, let me try to back up a little bit. Shepard has certain actions that he or she will do. Like, he or she is going to save the galaxy, and basically what you're influencing is whether he's like kind of a dick about it, like so you're kind of coloring the personality, you're shading it more than you're defining it. Same thing with I think like Lee from The Walking Dead. You have a goal in mind. You're keeping Clementine safe, but are you going to cast everyone to the wind and be like, fuck everybody else, I'm keeping this little girl safe? Or are you like, this little girl needs to see society functioning in some way, and she needs to learn lessons of goodness and things like that. Like you're coloring things, and that can be really meaningful, but it's different than just defining a character all yourself. Which Gordon Freeman, I think, is probably the named character that probably fits that best, or Vault Dweller, even though that's not a named character.
Link, maybe to an extent too.
Completely.
Link talks. He goes, yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say Mario, like the old school side scroller in the arcade, right? There's never an origin story until they had the TV show. But then we learned all about how they ended up in that scenario.
Right.
And bringing up Mario is such a great example because like he, in the distinction that Brian brought up, Mario is an agent. He has a personality. Like they've made a point, especially in much more recent games, to show like with not many tools, even in the early games, the way he like kind of jumped, or like when he died, he just kind of like shrugged. Like he's he's like a very sweet, like happy-go-lucky guy, and he kind of always has been. But he never talks. They just
that's what we call an iconic character, where they have like broad emotions, not necessarily clearly defined character personalities. Like Mario's brave and peppy, but we don't know much about like what motivates him other than he's the hero, right?
Yes, we do.
Cake. Yeah, Cake, of course.
That's true.
But that's definitely. But what's interesting too about Mario is that when he was designed, they didn't design him like for any other reason than they wanted to have like this kind of schlubby guy, and all of his designs come out of the fact that they had to work within the parameters of what the Donkey Kong hardware could do. So like, you know, in order to make it look like his arms and legs were moving, they gave him gloves and overalls and stuff like that. They gave him a mustache because otherwise his face would look weird. They had to have like a clear distinction on his face, and a hat because hair is hard to animate. And I think that's really interesting.
It's kind of like when you read about like early Disney animation, and they're like, oh, Mickey has gloves because like he was just all black and his fingers wouldn't be defined otherwise. You know, like things like that. It's very much the same kind of design philosophy for Mario.
And I don't know if like. I think part of what makes those characters so enduring is the fact that they were designed specifically for this purpose. They weren't like a transmedial thing where it's like, oh, we want a guy who kind of looks like this, or we want a guy who kind of looks like that, and we can make whatever we want. We're like, no, we have these tools. How can we make something that's memorable that players can map themselves onto? And I think that's kind of an interesting development, you know, in the course of games history.
I think going back to the voice versus voiceless thing. You know, I just went to Oculus Connect, which I should probably write an article about. But
yes, you should.
I know. But voiceless heroes in VR, I think, are going to be easier for users to adapt to. Because if you're standing there and your character that you are immersed in starts talking without you triggering it, that's going to be weird. Yeah. And I also think... when it comes to the voice heroes in VR, it's going to be a third-person perspective, like Edge of Nowhere or something. But I think that's where we're going to see this become like a bigger issue. I don't necessarily like one versus the other. I just think that I think Ragil brought up this point that voiceless, these tend to be yourself playing the game. Like you kind of put your own emotion into the experience, whereas like when it's Nathan Drake, it's almost like you're watching a movie. Like, I love Naughty Dog. They make amazing games. They tell you a story, and like you said, those are agents of that story. But, you know, I don't think one's better than the other. I just think there's like, you know, there's two ways to tell a story. I think both of them do a really good job. I mean, look at Half-Life. It's such a great story. They just didn't even end it.
Right. And they never will, because now they're making plenty of money without it.
God, that should be a HTC Vive launch title. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I was thinking. Like, if they don't launch with Half-Life 3, I'd be astonished. Like, that'd be genius. You want to move that hardware, that's how you do it.
Yeah, make it exclusive to that, and you'll make $1 gajillion.
So Dozer on the Chatty sort of framed this differently. It's very much the same kind of idea, but he framed it in a different way. He said it really depends if the player is the reader or the writer. Are their choices set and out of their hands, or do they create consequences? One type of hero is story-dependent, and the other is player-dependent. So in the end, it comes down to how close the player held said hero to them, which I think is an interesting framing, reading versus writing, like being an active participant in the storytelling versus, you know, in taking in a story that someone else has written. And then there, you know, in the video game medium, it's this really interesting mixture because you can have books and movies are very much, you know, they are writing a character, unless it's like a choose your own adventure, like you do this. But for the most part, it's a defined character. Video games can have a blank slate of a character where you can just do whatever, but they also have this interesting kind of way of blending things. A lot of games more recently are letting you, like I said, shade the thing slightly. Like Dragon Age came to mind. Like you can be whatever kind of, you know, mage, you know, character you want, of different races, of different whatever, and you can make different choices, but it's still these circumstances are being thrust upon you, and you're sort of dealing with them in a way. Yeah.
No, I think a game that kind of highlights this is Grand Theft Auto. With you know, if you look at Grand Theft Auto 4 or Vice City, these may not be like good guys. Like Nico Bellic isn't a good guy, but he is the hero of that game, and
they're all anti-heroes.
Based on your actions, though, you can have a more virtuous or vicious path in that game.
And so I find Rockstar, more than most companies, tends to make commentary on what kinds of anti-heroes they use. You know, in Grand Theft Auto 5, they had like a choice of 3 anti-heroes, and like the Black Street Thug was like the least shitty person of the 3 of them. You know, you had like a psychopath and like sort of a like total douchebag,
Well, I
and
mean,
who's like just trying to like make it. You know?
He was a lovable psychopath, though. I mean,
Yeah, there we go.
Trevor, like the whole spoiler alert from 2 years ago, but the whole thing with the wife that he kidnapped, that was adorable. Like you're like, this is weird, but at the same time, it's like it made you kind of love Trevor. I don't know.
He had a wife, like a woman that he kidnapped, and that he acted was his wife, or
he kidnapped some other dude's wife.
Oh, okay.
And then like,
oh, okay.
Like, because I haven't played the game, I'm just confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. Threw her.
I'm sorry, I don't care.
Drove her to the desert and kind of made her his house lady.
Oh, okay.
It was interesting.
It's not weird at all.
No, not weird at all. I mean, that's the least weird thing that happened in that game, honestly.
So Rockstar Heroes, I think, brings up one of the questions that I asked the chatty that we haven't really addressed yet. Like, do we need these to be? do we need these
about?
Yeah, I don't know. Low flying plane or something. Do we need these to be aspirational fantasies? Like, you know, where do we draw the line when we're enjoying a game versus a character that we like to see versus like I would like to be that person, because I don't want to be anybody in Grand Theft Auto. I don't, you know, as cool as John Marston is, I don't really want to be him either. Nathan Drake, like, he's charming, but he's also kind of like a selfish douchebag most of the time. Like that's the driving force behind.
He murders a lot of people. I feel that we can't oversee that. Like, if we compare him to Indiana Jones shoots a few people, but Nathan Drake, he murders entire countries.
He commits genocide. Yeah, like he's. But I mean, like even if you just excuse that as like, oh well, you know, gameplay, whatever, which is problematic in itself. But we don't have time to get into all that. But even if you just kind of hand wave that away, like he's still kind of a douche. Like he's still kind of just like a selfish guy. And most of the time they land in a bunch of trouble because he gets kind of selfish.
Yeah.
And then it like the arc of every Uncharted game. I like the Uncharted game, so take this with a grain of salt. But the arc of basically every Uncharted game is he got selfish, got in over his head, dragged in a bunch of people that he cares about, realizes, oh wait, that was terrible. I need to save them, and then he gets out of it. Like that's every Uncharted game.
They're fun stories. Like, I mean, that's the thing is like you're not really playing to be Nathan Drake so much as you are just trying to find out what he's up to, what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Like with Metal Gear, like I don't really want to be Big Boss because that sounds terrible. But like I want to see what happens.
Endless suffering, like any Kojima character.
Yeah, it's like you read a book, you watch a movie. You don't necessarily want to be that character, but you want to know what happens.
In Kojima's world, even the badass robot ninja like is only that way because he got his jaw ripped off or something. Like
like there's a tragic backstory behind this super cool thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up there to get to some.
Oh wait!
Up.
Bad Kitty. Bad Kitty wanted to. She tweeted at me. I like heroes who are more than what they seem, like Final Fantasy IX's Zidane. He understands people even though he's a skirt chaser. Mm-hmm. I thought that'd be a nice way to end it up. But
depth is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, like I said, I don't want to be any of these heroes necessarily, but it's just I like rooting for the underdog. Going back to what I said originally, it's like the guy who has no shot at saving the world and then does it. I think that's
sort of the classic storytelling device, like the David versus Goliath, etc.
Yeah, that's Mega Man, that's Mario, that's Snake, that's
exactly.
But yeah.
So we're gonna get to a couple of newsy bits and beat the doc, but first Brian has a word from Audible.
Yes, Steve, I do. Audible.com wants to give you, the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial to check out their service. Lots of great books on games, tech, hundreds of other topics to choose from. Every week we're going to highlight one that we've personally enjoyed, and we think you might too. This week we're recommending Aziz Ansari's Modern Romance, read by the author and comedian himself. It's a fun, insightful look at how we communicate and fall in love in the mediated age that's both a rigorous scientific study based on the principles of sociology and communication, and also laugh-out-loud funny, especially with the audiobook exclusive jokes and asides that Aziz throws in as he reads the book. You can check that out or check out any of over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download. Just visit audibletrial.com/chattycast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/chattycast.
Thank you. It is time for Newsy Bits, quick takes on some of the top items of the last week. And I do mean quick, because we don't have that much time.
Yep.
First up, the voice actors strike. This is one of those things that we are actually considering for a big topic, so I'm sure we're going to be revisiting it in future weeks. But for people who maybe don't know, the voice actors of is it SAG, the the actors union?
SAG-AFTRA, yeah.
Yeah, is considering
Wait, wouldn't it be VAG?
let's
I could have
let's just
pronounced
avoid that.
by the
I'm
way.
just going to sidestep that whole thing. So they're
Brian's just shaking his head.
I didn't hear anything, la la.
Basically, they're considering a strike because the protections for voice actors for video games aren't quite where they want them to be. You might show up for a session and they're like, okay, now you're playing a random soldier, so you got to scream into this microphone for 3 hours. They have a large list of demands, but that's one of them, like the we need to protect our voice kind of thing. So yeah, there might be a strike, and we kind of have yet to see what companies do with this. If they're just like, all right, well, we'll use non-union people. One of the sort of points of negotiation that I heard about, and I thought it was sort of just an interesting side note, was according to rules, you can't have if you have a union member, you can't have a non-union member. So basically, if you're a developer and you're like, I want to put my own voice in this game, you can't if you have a union voice actor. So it seems like there's probably some budging room there that they can compromise. That seems like one of those kind of silly things. But
it's a really complex issue. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it. And what's made more complicated is that when we talk about unionizing and union protections in games, voice actors are almost the last people we think about, right? Because there's certainly the argument that can be made that developers, people like artists, all these people who spend hundreds of hours in crunch time, working on these games, they don't have that guaranteed royalties or anything like that. So, there's been kind of this, what I think is almost kind of like a false sort of dichotomy, where you have people who work in the development side saying, well, we should get this first and not you. Instead of why don't we work together? I think that's kind of the sad thing about this whole situation. But if you want somebody to talk about union contracts, I don't really know. All I know is I know people
we don't have to do a deep dive on politics.
I know people by proxy who work as SAG members, and it's very complicated. Not only are you have very strict place about where you can go, where you can work, that kind of stuff. You also have to pay out of your own pocket to be that. So for some actors, that's a lot of money, especially if you're just starting out.
That it pays back because you get more jobs, etc.
In theory, but that is not guaranteed.
The idea is you get paid back. So do you have any hot take on this before we move on to our next newsy bit?
Just the abbreviation should be changed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think these guys are working really hard, and they see these games go on to make billions of dollars, and then, I definitely think there's a disparity in how they're being rewarded, and also I blame Kevin Spacey, because once he started lending his voice to games, it was over.
Yeah.
Spacey,
you did it again. I mean, as I understand it, I'll just leave with this real quick. As I understand it, the residuals wouldn't even actually be that much. For a game that sells 10 million copies, this is just from memory, so I could be completely wrong, but I feel like I heard that for a game that sells 10 million copies, it's we would get an extra $3,000, and it's that's not really that much,
It's not, but also, if you're...
It's the principle of the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you're setting up these budgets, you have, say, 30, 40, 50 actors in the game that are all SAG-AFTRA, it could add up. I don't think that's a reason not to do it, but I can see the hesitance to do that.
Yeah. It's not like you'd just be doing that for one guy. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind as people think about this and talk about this is there's maybe 5 Nolan Norths in the world, and they're the ones that are really successful and doing very well. And then there's a million other guys that are just trying to make it and really need whatever.
Yeah, this doesn't affect Nolan North. It's more for the people who don't have a guaranteed job lined up after they finish this one.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder if you're going to start to see studios signing voice actors to exclusive deals like movie studios do for actual actors.
Oh, that'd be interesting. If EA was we have exclusive rights to Troy Baker,
Yeah.
for the next 10 years.
It's possible. And if they're looking for money, that would be one way to do it.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So next newsy bit, you brought up, Asif, how you were working on your third level. This is kind of interesting. Mario Maker has sold over 1 million units worldwide.
Yahoo!
And I think 2.2 million courses created.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
So on average...
So an average of 2.2 courses, right?
Yeah, so on average, people have created the same number of courses as you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm definitely in the 0.2 right now.
Obviously, there are some people like creating like 30 courses, and all of them are terrible. And there's a bunch of people that have designed nothing, like, for example, me, who has it, but I played it for review, and then I had to move on to other review games. But
we have this Google Doc on Chatty of all the Chatty members and some of Ozzy's levels, and I think Andrew's even up there. But it's great. You can go through there.
Andrew.
Even Andrew. He actually logged on to shacknews.com with his fingers. And, I think he has some levels up there. But I actually, when I was in the office, I made a level at headquarters. It was pretty cool. But, that game's the best thing to happen to video games in like 20 years. And I tweeted this out. I'm dead serious. I tweeted this out.
But you were calling this your game of the year before it came out. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised at all.
This is the game of the year. Everything else is nice. I'm not even playing. Here's why I shouldn't vote for game of the year, by the way. I haven't played Metal Gear. I haven't played The Witcher. I have no intention.
That's why we take a vote among a lot of people. It all kind of evens out.
It's going to be like Rocket League and City Skylines for me.
Expecting every voter to have played everything would be insane. Yeah. That's going to happen.
I just want to speak to sandbox games for a second, and I consider Mario Maker a sandbox game. There's like a revival of this happening this year between City Skylines and Mario Maker, and at the Oculus demo, drink again because I mentioned VR, they had this thing called Medium where you were sculpting. It was like you're in this giant space and you could sculpt clay in 3D. I just think there's, as the graphics have gotten better, and in the case of the Wii U, the gamepad kind of provides a better functionality. Sandbox games are going to continue to kind of come back, I think. But Mario Maker's just great. It deserves to sell more.
Mario showing the example of like, hey, you don't need to make it stupidly complicated and super flexible, because Mario Maker isn't that flexible. You just need to have kind of a solid base.
But by the way, Super Metroid Maker, Super Zelda Maker.
Oh my God, I would freak the fuck out if they had Super Zelda Maker.
Right? I'm just saying, if you give us Super Zelda Maker, Nintendo,
let me make a dungeon. That's all I want. That's all I want.
Right? That's all I would want.
It's exciting, but based on some of the levels people have made in Mario Maker,
it would be terrible. It would be like there would be.
I can't fully endorse this.
Yeah. No, the other thing with Mario Maker having to finish a stage, we're going off on such a tangent, but with Mario Maker having to finish a stage to be able to publish it is like a really smart, easy way to make sure that you can finish it. Zelda, I feel like
it's not a guarantee you will either.
There are a lot more ways you could do something wrong and break a level and make it unplayable. In some classic Zelda games, there were ways you could break a level and make it unplayable.
But like with Mario Maker, I hate the levels where it's like, yes, you can win it, but there's only one way to do it, and it's not like they give you no indication how to do that, and so you just hit it in the challenge mode, and you're just like, well, this is fun. Like, well,
that's poor design. I do wish the curation were a little smarter, so they could tell when like there's a well-designed hard level versus a poorly designed hard level. But we've aired those grievances before.
No, I think, Steve, you made a great point in your review about this, is that Mario Maker is a set of tools, and you can't sit there and blame the tool for people doing something stupid. You know, like you can make a great hammer. If someone takes that hammer and bashes someone on the head with it, it's not the hammer's fault. You know, it's the person. You know, so I feel like having watched a 7 and a 9-year-old play Mario Maker, I'm like, God, there are going to be so many bad levels, but it's a great tool for me and some of my friends. And
my brother was like, I'm trying to explain to my son why having a fun level is more important than having a hard level, and his son is like 10 years old, and I was like, oh no, it's people like your son who is doing this.
Yeah.
No,
it's not too late to disown him, Steve.
But yeah, best thing that happened to video games in 20 years.
Let us move on to a quick round of Beat the Doc, part of the show where I abuse my hosting powers by pitting my friends against each other in a pointless game. as always, our guest will go first. I said that fast because I say it every week if this is your first show. Today's game is called Hero Scramble. I'm going to mash together character traits from 2 heroes, and your job is to tell me both of the ones in the mix. So, for example, if I said Italian Hedgehog Plumber, the answer would obviously be Sonic and Mario. Mm-hmm. So, Asif, you are first.
Oh, boy.
The son of Dracula just has to believe.
The son of Dracula just has to believe?
Just has to believe.
It's Simon Belmont.
Or just gotta believe, if that helps you at all.
Gotta believe.
I feel like Brian probably knows this one, which is why
he's itching to answer it.
which is why I'm hating yours.
Simon Belmont has gotta believe. I'm blanking.
It actually isn't Simon Belmont. So
okay, I was wrong anyway.
It was Alucard and Parappa the Rappa.
What?
Alucard the Rappa.
Just gotta believe.
Okay, I'm gonna get smoked in this. Okay.
All right, Brian, your turn.
Okay.
Time-hopping swordsman has bird blood.
Okay, the bird blood's Samus. The time-hopping swordsman. That's throwing me. Link and Samus. It's Link and Samus.
No, although I guess Link would actually qualify. No, I was going for Chrono there.
Oh, so I still get a point though.
Yeah. I'll count that because
I don't get a point. It's fine.
What? What kind of?
I'm just saying you've got.
That was my fault. But
okay.
This is the Mario Maker of trivia games.
Just unintended consequences everywhere. All right.
Okay.
Asif.
It's 0-0. It's fine.
Yeah. Asif. Vengeful God knows every puzzle has a solution.
Vengeful God knows every puzzle has a solution. You wouldn't go that far to be like Pushmo, would you?
No.
Does anyone even know?
This is a character with a voice and a personality.
Pushmo's a character.
Mallow is his name.
I don't know. I suck at this game.
That is Kratos and Professor Layton.
I was gonna say Kratos, but I had blanked on the other one. So
well, that's the tricky thing about this game is you have to get 2 of them correct.
Well, technically, he doesn't become a god until the second game, but
yes, I know. But he's spent more time as a god than as not a god.
Sure.
And vengeful, I guess I could have said Spartan. I don't know. All right, Brian. Gunslinging cowboy takes photos to spur revolution.
So John Marston. And what's the dude from Just Cause? I don't know. Rico?
Yeah, it is. Just Cause is Rico, but it's not Just Cause. As far as I know, he doesn't take photos to spur on the revolution. The person who takes photos to spur revolution is Jade.
Oh, okay.
Jade from Beyond Good and Evil. So
Jade Marston.
Yeah, Jade Marston. I tried like doing mashups of the names for some of these, like Paralucard, or I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, finally tiebreaker round.
The important thing is you tried.
Since this is a tiebreaker, we're going to see who buzzes in first. And if neither of you buzz in, I guess we just end tied at 0-0. Maybe this game was harder than I pictured. So tiebreaker, say buzz when you know the answer. Dinosaur Land resident needs to collect his ancestors' book of secrets.
Buzz.
No? Okay.
Yoshi Drake.
Yoshi Drake? No, I'm sorry. It's not
really?
Yoshi Drake.
Wait,
Asif, do you have a guess for the win?
It's Yoshi, and then oh man, wait, repeat it again.
Dinosaur Land resident needs to collect his ancestors' book of secrets.
Yep, I got this one now. I know exactly what it is.
Too late. You already got it wrong.
I know, but I'm angry at myself now.
God, I'm terrible at this. I don't know.
I think everyone is. I think I made a game that was too hard. All right, I'm gonna have to buzz you in 5 seconds.
No,
You're calling it? Okay, Brian, what was your second guess?
It was gonna be Sly Cooper was the other guy,
right? Sly Cooper, yes, it was Yoshi Cooper.
Cooper.
Sly Cooper in the very first game, which was the best one. He was trying to collect the pages of the Thievius Raccoonus.
Yeah. So this is like the Cleveland Browns versus the Detroit Lions here. We had 0-0. No one watched.
0-0. Everyone's a winner, and also everyone's a loser.
Nobody wins.
So I tied the
win.
doc. I tied the doc.
Yeah, you tied the doc. That's an honor that not everyone can say.
You rose to my mediocre level.
I'm like,
so
I'm on. I can't believe it.
Yep. Congratulations, your trophy.
You are a worthy foe.
That is the show, Asif. You don't usually produce content at a regular rate, so I usually ask for plugs. But do you have anything to plug?
Sure.
Shacknews.com in general, since you're
okay. Well, yeah. Can I plug something that's not on Shack?
Sure, if you want to, I guess.
If you're in San Diego on October 30th, we're throwing a party. It's called Devil's Night Detroit Style. It's got Octave One, Frankie Bones, Asher Perkins, and DJ Assault, who's known for this famous song "Ass and Titties." But yeah, besides that, Shacknews.com. You know, if you're on the Chatty, subscribe to Mercury. You know, check out the Shack News Select we did a couple weeks ago. We have a new video section on the front page. You know, we got
project. Of course, you can plug that. I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
Yeah, you know, and then yeah, I probably should have some articles up in the next couple days. That stock one that we had talked about. I feel like now that the market's gotten crushed, it's a good time to start telling people what I think, as opposed to when everything was at all-time highs. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. I don't know if you looked at the stats, Steve, but we had like 75% year-over-year growth. And
yeah, I did notice that because today was my report day. So
yeah, that was pretty amazing. So way to go.
A little peek inside baseball there. So that is the show. Thank you for tuning in. So for Asif, I am Steve Watts.
I am Brian Carr.
And we will see you on Chatty.
Test it.